It's time, ladies and gents, about to spit about some film reels. Copping the field to seal the deal of what the films reveal. Batman, Superman, even Spider-Man compare to fare against each other, tearing apart the plots that they prepare. But these are just a few examples for the task at hand. On demand with cinematic contraband to shock the fans. To preach the theme titled Film Eat Film. Tis the keen regime for cinema guillotines to rock my rhyme kiln.
Welcome back, movie munchers, to Film Eat Film. Today we have one new face, two regulars, three regulars. But here we are with Best Over-the-Top Action, Best Stop Animation Film, and Best Film of 2015. Joining me, Scott Icebox Nemi, is the fact checker, Trace Couch Patchen.
How you doing, guys?
And new Zorro Zorno. All right.
Zorro, there you go.
And
Call me Banderas.
then we have Taylor Ruffalo Wheeler coming back again.
Yo.
All right. So we flipped the coin. So we will go with Taylor first in Best Over-the-Top Action Movies. 3.5 minutes for you to start.
You'll never make it that long.
Are you ready? So tell us your film, and your 3.5 starts now.
Alright, so my film for over-the-top action is the masterpiece, like absolute Oscar-worthy masterpiece of Lockout. With Guy Pearce as the main actor in this, running around being a badass, shooting people. Essentially, though, what this film is Escape from New York in space. That's just, so you take the ridiculous premise of Escape from New York of saving, was it the president or...
President, correct.
Yeah. But except this time, it's not Kurt Russell, but Guy Pearce saving the president's daughter on a spaceship that's a jail, and he has to go into space, but he's actually a wrongly convicted felon, so he's redeeming himself for this, and that he's got to get the daughter. Of course, the daughter is like that kind of jerk, meanish right away, because he's Guy Pearce. He runs around with a shirt that says "Warning, offensive" on it. So obviously you know he's a badass and he's gonna do whatever. But there's awesome like space scenes in this where they're like shooting out through space and just doing crazy stuff through that. There's even a point where Guy Pearce is like, "Yo, you're the president's daughter. I don't care. I'm gonna put oil in your hair so they can't recognize you and turn you into a boy, more or less, Maggie Grace."
Masterpiece. Makeup effects as well.
It's just over the top the entire time of ridiculous action. The lines are just unbelievably beyond everything, more or less. With Guy Pearce just spouting like, "I'm a badass, but I'm a dick. But you know I have a good heart" in the middle of it. So, it's just that whole thing going. His name's Snow, but he has a girly name for his real name, so he keeps that under secret because of how badass he is. But just the over-the-top nature of the fights. Peter Stormare brings his, of course, over-the-top acting that he does in various situations to the table to just make the situation more ridiculous as he's talking or yelling in his accent the entire time. It's just a wonderful thing, and there's a great quote from Guy Pearce in here, and just a sampling of the wonderful dialogue from this film, which was Snow, which is Pearce's character, saying to one of the people talking to him, "Oh, it was coupon night, and I was trampolining your wife." So that's just a sample of lines that you get in this ridiculously over-the-top action amazement, is just lines like that. Or the "don't flatter yourself, I don't like anybody," like every badass should say. I understand Wanted has gunfights and stuff, but this is a space fight between Guy Pearce and Joseph Gilgun. For those that don't know who he is, he was on Misfits, also from the new show Preacher, where he's running as Cassidy. But it's just those two facing off each other, and Joseph Gilgun's doing a crazy job in there too, with one eye being blind, running around with tattoos everywhere. So Lockout's just insane.
Nice.
Over the top.
Awesome stuff. All right, Zorro, you ready?
Sure, let's do it.
3.5 minutes starts now.
Alrighty. So, as much as Lockout is truly a masterpiece of our time, I'm going to push it back a few years to Wanted, which I think did pretty well box office wise, but was generally smashed by the critics for, being entertaining, which is something they don't appreciate. It had, at the time, a fairly really good cast. I would say like James McAvoy, who is relatively new, and so I'm going to give my movie the edge in overall cast. Like, we had Morgan Freeman, we had Angelina Jolie, and we still had a fat Chris Pratt, which, let's just imagine a world with a fat Chris Pratt. It's better. So, overall, I think this movie has a ton of gunplay in it, which I'm a huge fan of, which is why I like movies like The Matrix and John Wick. And then the whole curving the bullets, which I tried, with so many Nerf guns throughout my life. I mean, it really shaped and molded my entire life of, like, trying to curve things to appease people. And I think that there were so many interesting shots in this movie. I don't know if you'd call it like digital cinematography, I guess. One scene that always sticks in my mind is the super awesome fight where McAvoy confronts his coworker Chris Pratt and hits him in the face with a keyboard, only to have the perfect keys fly out of it and spell some obscenities on the screen. And I pretty much clapped at that point, like, yes, well done. I would love to hit my jerk coworker. And then, I think my movie actually has, like, a story in it. Amid all the over-the-top action, there's some craziness with Morgan Freeman in there reading the loom. I'm not really sure what he was doing, but something about their targets were in the loom. And so you get all these awesome scenes. The car flip scene where they're assassinating that one guy and they fly over the top of him, and McAvoy has that weird slow motion "I'm sorry" as he shoots them through his top of his cab window. And I don't know, there was some sense of story, like his father is a rogue agent, I guess. That's kind of cool, right? We can all appreciate that, and he's trying to reconnect with them and hunt them down. And the movie also closes with a pretty incredible scene with the massive 360-degree curve, and Jolie steps right into her own bullet's path and gets her noggin blown all over the wall. So that was pretty awesome. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm kind of running out of steam on here, but I thought Wanted was just, like, incredible. There were so many, like, parts of that movie that I remember very vividly, and the bullet time effects were really awesome, and I miss those effects from other movies like The Matrix. They don't do them a lot in movies just because they are kind of cheesy and corny. So I really appreciate a lot of the things that movie brings to the table.
Is that it?
Yep.
All right. Rebuttal time. Taylor, you get to go first. 2 minutes on the clock. Begin.
All right. So I am going to say an obscenity in this, so fair warning. Because I found my favorite lines from this movie, which I remembered a while ago, and I was looking for how it was exactly said. So one dude's like, "Who's the mystery man on the phone?" And Guy Pearce goes, "His name was fuck you." Dude goes, "Really?" Guy Pearce goes, "Yeah, he was Asian." So that's the kind of amazing dialogue you get in the over-the-top Lockout, because it's really, in all honesty, it's a big throwback to 90s, here's some ridiculous plot of saving the president's daughter in a spaceship full of jailed prisoners who are psychotic, who were frozen with cryogenics, but unfroze, became crazy, took over the ship, everything like that. So just the most ridiculous plot that you could possibly have for a 90s action flick in a, 2010, I believe it was, or something along 2012, actually, 2012 film. Just amazingly wonderful things with the amazing graphics of a 1990s spaceship docking on there to make it more over the top because of the ridiculously terrible CG that they used to just push over the fact that, hey, we're a ridiculous film, so here's some ridiculous stuff for you guys to see. There's one point where they actually freeze one of the dudes and kill him that way. What else is there? There's a whole thing of a mess of prisoners running after Guy Pearce, and he coincidentally runs into a room where somebody can help him, and he just quickly shuts down the door before they can get in, because every action movie ever needs that whole chase scene thing going on. which Wanted didn't really have that all that much. Like there wasn't. Yes, Wanted's action for some parts, but I mean, was it over the top? No.
I would say
you
the movie that has the
all you
curvature
got
of bullets.
all you
over
got
the
was
top.
curving bullets. I got a space war going on with Guy Pearce warning offensive, bro.
All right. Strong rebuttal.
I didn't sense any rebuttal in there.
All right, Blake.
More garbage talk.
Shut up.
More drunk talk from Muff Potter. All right. Tom and Huck quote right there. All right, 2 minutes on the clock. Begin.
All right. So one part, Guy Pearce, as awesome as he is, I think he doesn't bring the same sex appeal that a wax-ish covered Angelina Jolie brings to my movie. I mean, not the same. So I think that my movie, in addition to just being kind of obscene with a ton of F-bombs and other things in there, also kind of brings the throwback, you could call it, of like. I think my movie actually does a good job, because in your movie, the one female character that's there, they cover her in oil and just kick her around the place until they leave. There are a couple of female characters, most notably Jolie in my movie, who actually is sort of like the leader behind Morgan Freeman. So I think, yes, she's pretty. Look at her. There's a couple of like thrown in sex scenes in there, not with Jolie specifically, but with Chris Pratt and McAvoy's girlfriend. So, there's like the sex appeal in my movie, but then also they do take the one defining female character and actually make her pretty badass. And so, she's like, oh, good to look at, and she's dangerous. And, Guy Pearce just doesn't bring that because he's a dude. Let's be honest.
Look, I'm sorry, all my sex appeal came from Peter Stormare.
The other thing that I really like about my movie, and I talked about it earlier, was that it just has... The movie was made in 2008, and I still think about how cool it was to see in theaters. And I'm talking, not just... just struggling to put this into words, but it was just really super entertaining. It moved itself along at a nice pace, and there were some great training montages in there, which are always great for over-the-top action movies. He had to learn how to curve a bullet, and he, brushed Jolie's hair over the top of her ear, all subtle, And there was a pigman rapist in there that he gets to kill, too. That was awesome. I just think it's a better film, superior. Not as many stupid lines, though. I will give your movie that.
Wow. Boy, this is a tough round there, Couch.
It's a rough one, eh?
Yeah, I hate deciding these ones. But let's go to you first with any cleanup that we need.
I don't have any cleanup, but I have some cool facts to let you score up right now.
Let's
For
hear it.
Lockout, we'll start with that one. Yes, 2012 is when it came out, Taylor. IMDb has it at 6.1, 48 on Metascore, 38% overall on Rotten Tomato. In 2015, October of 2015, a French court ruled that enough similar distinctive elements were in this movie and in Escape from New York that they gave a plagiarism case to John Carpenter against Luc Besson for this film. So that's something. Next up,
Great job,
Wanted,
Taylor.
2008, 6.7 on IMDb, 64 Metascore, and 72% on Rotten Tomato. Actually was nominated for 2 Oscars as well. And this movie marked director Timur Bekmambetov's first American film.
2 definitely over-the-top action movies. And where to draw the line is difficult because I feel like Taylor focused a lot on the dialogue, but then in the rebuttal came up with some good stuff about, innovative killings, throwback plot, the cliches. And then Blake had a little bit more rounded argument in the beginning and then kind of threw it up at the end with the training montages and the theater experience and the female badassness kind of stuff. I'm really torn here. No, you're not gonna grab that though.
No.
I'm
Okay.
gonna make him finish this a different way, unless I can't decide on this. Look, so we went with best over-the-top action, and you each chose your film based on what you think over-the-top action is. So, in your best words, in one sentence, describe to me what an over-the-top action movie needs. And based on your answer, I will look at what I have written down underneath your films and decide who wins, okay? So one sentence, Taylor starting first. What does an over-the-top action movie need?
Like my movie specifically, or just in general?
Just in general.
Just in general?
Yeah.
Ridiculous plot, such as Guy Pearce saving the president's daughter
In space.
in space.
Very good. Like,
I think my defining characteristic has to fall under the entertainment side of it, and it all comes down to the scene occurs, you go, oh my god, did they just do that? And then there's like that 10-second feeling of like, what did I just watch? That's probably my favorite part about over-the-top action movies.
all right. Not that I disagree with Taylor. I think the end of the wrap-up for Blake and his overall argument throughout, I'll give Blake the first point. And a narrow one, a very narrow one.
Shenanigans.
So we go to our next topic. Best stop animation film. Coraline versus Paranorman. So we're going to flip roles here, and Blake gets to start us out with his 3.5 minutes introducing his movie. And here we go. 3.5 now.
Alrighty, so in Paranorman, this was one of those movies that when it came out, I actually had zero desire to see it, and it was my wife that she's like, it's animated, let's watch it. So we watched it, and I was actually blown away by the depth in this movie. I thought it had such a great mix of comedy, as well as real storytelling. There was a lot of emotion in the movie, and it being that it was a stop animation, it was a very unique visual experience as well. I really enjoyed the overall theme of the movie. They gave each character exaggerated features. Norman had some crazy ears and a giant head. I believe his sister had like a crazy Nicki Minaj booty, which was weird, but whatever. And I don't know. I really gravitated towards, like, there was this whole Sixth Sense vibe where, in the beginning you're like, oh, his grandma's there, but like when nobody else is even talking to her. So Norman has this ability to kind of communicate and see and help dead people, which is intriguing, especially in a child's movie, or that could be perceived as a child's movie, that they would deal with death in that way and not just gloss over it, that the characters, even though they're dead, still have feelings, they still can affect the main character. And then on top of there being that emotion, there was actually some parts in that movie which I did find quite feverish and terrifying, and they did do a good job of punctuating that with comedy. I go back to the scene where he's visiting that old gentleman in his beaten up abandoned shack to try to get some answers on how he can stop the hauntings in his town, and the old guy's dead, and you're like, what? He's dead in here. And then there's that scene where, like, he's falling over and he's like, I'm alive, I'm dead, I'm alive, I'm dead. And I was laughing very hard at that, but then I remembered that this is a kid's movie, and there's like a dude that is dead and he's rotting in this house, and Norman's having to deal with all this. And then the climax of the movie, after all like the zombies get released, there was another hilarious part with the vending machine, and the guys sitting there like, come on to the vending machine, and there's a little bag of chips or whatever, and all the zombies are coming, and then the chase up to, and I believe that the main plot focused around like that girl who was haunting. I honestly don't remember. I don't know if she died or was bullied to death. I'm really not sure, but there was that scene where it became very kind of ghost world-ish. The ground in the world that Norman was in, he entered like the ghost realm, and it was just very visually stunning with the floating landscape and the overall just like super creepy, afterlife vibe to it. And overall, I just think it hit all the plots, and it wrapped up really nicely at the end with Norman accepting that, he was just going to be different and see dead people, and that he shouldn't be bullied, and, that was going to be okay. And the movie also did have a touch of dealing with homophobia in there, as well as the jock, which I thought was nice too, because you don't see that. There is a gay character in that movie who should have been very straight, but wasn't. So I thought it just touched everything. It did a very nice job, and I really liked it.
Nice. Almost 3.5 on the dot. Taylor, going to you and Coraline. Your 3.5 starts now.
Alright, so starting off with like story and stuff like that, Coraline has an amazing story as well as far as dealing with a small child and dealing with how they're actually dealing with a move, more or less. Similar to Inside Out, but done in a much more fantasized way with this. Where Coraline essentially has moved into a new house that she hates. She's disliking her parents, everything along those lines, and it's hitting on these points of, like, I really don't like you guys, stuff like that. Like, emotions that a normal child would feel in this situation, not dealing with ghosts, not Haley Joel Osment in this. And then she finds this world that's the same as what hers is, but she goes through a doorway, and it's just so much more magical and fantasized, and that the other world essentially that she goes through, and she finds the other mother and all of this that are just so perfect. The only difference is that people have buttons for eyes instead. But it's this whole world of fantasy, and talking about beauty of like the sets and that you go through is such a strange way of doing it, because it's so kind of horror-esque with a lot of the elements. It's so dark at various moments, and they have such kind of horror-esque parts to it, but they make everything seem so beautiful with the lighting and everything like that, where Paranorman used a lot of greens and stuff like that. Coraline went for it, and they used so many different colors, from blues, reds, oranges. Most of the time what they did is they kind of combined it to match with her emotions at the moments in time. So as her emotions kind of changed, some of the scenery and that would change. There was scenes full of snow and just this beautiful white, and all of the trees with snow coming from them. And it just, for it, Coraline's just so more magical with its world. And then you have such a stark contrast when she goes back to the real world, and you see just like the plain as day stuff, and like kind of the dark sky, the grays and everything like that. And it's just such a stark contrast between the two that it makes it so cool to see the other world, and you just want to stay there. And that's what the story is about, is her wanting to stay in this other world, not realizing that the other mother is actually some crazy, creepy spider person that's coming to take her soul, essentially. With Keith David Cat trying to be the all-knowing kind of being there, trying to guide her along, and more or less kind of protect her in a way, is just so done so well with the beauty of it and the story of it, just combining to match with each other and flow as one, instead of like Paranorman sets where nice, but it's just the stark contrast that you get, and just the colors. And one of the most magical things is the flower scene, where in the other world all of the flowers come down to create Coraline's face on the ground. It's such a beautiful moment, and such one of those moments where the other mother's luring Coraline in, like, look at how perfect this is. And it's messages like this to teach, like, teaching children different lessons about, like, being seduced by stuff along those lines, and like having what you already have is just as good as what kind of this movie's trying to teach you. It's not as bad as what you think it is.
Nice.
Beautiful.
In depth. Good stuff. Now the knives come out. It's rebuttal time. Zorro, you start. 2 minutes. Go.
So one of the main jabs at my movie that you took is that it doesn't deal with real things that, you know, besides Haley Joel Osment, that would deal with. And my main thing to that is that kids very much don't exist in reality because they spend so much time in their heads anyways. So to take a alternative method to deliver the tried and true, I guess, storytelling vice that is, it is okay to be different. You can have things that make you special. That doesn't make you strange, bad, or weird. It just makes you you. So Paranorman is paranormal. So that's one thing that I think all kids movies should do, is you have a chance to take an audience and target a message at them in an alternative method. So that's kind of where I like where Paranorman comes in. But then, like any good kids movie, they take elements and they add in adult humor. They add in things that make, you know, the parents want to watch it just as much as the young child. And that's where Paranorman really, really got me, was that, you know, like any good Pixar movie or anything like that, you go in there and it's meant for this audience because it's animated, but you go in there and anybody can get something out of it, and that was me. You know, I got a good laugh out of it. I thought there were moments of actual terror and franticness, like I described, and there were jokes in there that, you know, young kids are just gonna go right over the top. And like I mentioned earlier, that character that was gay. One of those things where it's like you don't see that. There was just a lot of things, and I think that part of it was that this movie was a little bit different. It wasn't attached. I don't remember exactly what studio produced it, but it wasn't attached to like Disney or anything like that. It was its kind of own individual, unique movie experience. And overall, I felt that there was something there for anybody.
Nice, good work. 2 minutes for Ruffalo Wheeler. Begin.
All right. So as far as Coraline goes, there is stuff for everybody within Coraline. If you look at the two sisters that live in the same house, they're very adult-oriented, along with the circus entertainer, the blue-faced dude who's out of shape now and all of that. That whole grouping is meant to, this is adult theme and this is all this, because there's a lot of like sexual jokes between the two sisters. It's kind of creepy at some moments in time. As far as real terror and fear, there's the moment where the other mother in her spider form, like it's a mechanical almost spider form, is chasing after Coraline through the little open way as Coraline's trying to escape. And just that whole scene in there is just pure, like, kind of fear for, especially for child's movies, way out there for that. But like I said before, it's the beauty and the combination of how they interwebbed both of them together with the story and all of that. But beyond that, since I spent so much time on that already, is another thing with this is just the voice cast that they had in here with Keith David running as the cat, having that kind of smooth adult voice in there to kind of guide Coraline in her young ways. And Dakota Fanning playing Coraline and just voicing that role was really perfect for her and one of the best roles she's done, because her voice acting for it was so well done that you could see the child in her, but her kind of transferring between different stages of her life and how it's affecting her in that. And even Ian McShane throwing in some of the fun stuff in there as the circus entertainer. He was very hilarious and does a good job of being entertaining for the most part, as Mr. Sergei Alexander Bobinski is what his name was. But it's just the voice acting, the story that's combined with the beauty of this, which is a lot more beautiful than what Paranorman was in every right. And just how well done everything is around it.
Boy, another tough round.
It is.
This is BS.
It's stacking up.
Anything for cleanup?
Yeah, I got some stuff actually.
Come on.
Paranorman, 7.0 on IMDb, 72 Metascore, 87 on Rotten Tomato. Focus, for the production company, Focus Features actually distributed it, and Lakia is the production company that animated it. It also did films like Boxtrol and Coraline. For Coraline, I don't have anything, but yeah. IMDb 7.7, 80 Metascore, 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. And this, at 1 hour 40 minutes long, this is the longest stop motion film to date.
Is there any awards tied with either of those
They
films?
both were nominated for Best Animation, neither of them won.
If you look at it as a whole, Paranorman and Coraline are sort of dealing with somewhat of a split universe, if you will. You know, Paranorman has his regular world, but he can see this spiritual world. Coraline goes through the door, and then she's in this alternate universe, which is similar to hers, but to her it's a little different. So I think you guys kind of axed each other out there. I think when you kind of go over themes, you both did a really good job with your themes. You kind of canceled each other out there. As for me, the one thing that puts it over the top, and something that I think where it was a hit, and then no rebuttal for it, and or at least not as good of a rebuttal for myself, is Taylor described his stop animation world very nicely while sort of tearing down Paranorman in a way. The use of the colors as it went with her emotions, and then all of a sudden, then you get the alternate universe, her real world. The reality is very gray, decrepit kind of thing. And so for me, it's the one thing that I have because this was so close, and I don't want to go to a tiebreaker because I want this to go down to the final battle here. So I'm giving Coraline the point. Another really hard one to judge.
Yeah, I had nothing to argue as far as the animation because the Coraline is better. So
Last but not least, a topic that was helped out by our very own Trace Couch Patchin. Best film of 2015. We have The Force Awakens taking on Mad Max Fury Road.
no surprise there.
Ooh, this is going to be good.
This is
Mad Max, 3.5 minutes for Taylor. Begin.
All right, so Mad Max Fury Road, George Miller's romp back into the universe that he created, and he makes it what he wanted it to be originally, which is an amazing push for him to be able to come back after, I don't know how many years it was since the first Mad Max, but he comes back, makes this amazing film with everything goes. Just critically acclaimed all over the place. It had 100% of Rotten Tomatoes for a while. It doesn't anymore that I know of. But it was a couple weeks that it still maintained 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, where Star Wars got hit almost immediately with backlash. Mad Max Fury Road didn't get hit with much backlash, really barely at all. But some of the main things is just, again, it's beautiful movie, but in a different way, essentially, because it's this post-apocalyptic world, but you see these creations that are done in all of it, and because I'm a stickler for practical effects, this is something that really hit home with me, was all the practical effects that Mad Max Fury Road uses throughout the entire time, without having to turn to CG to create their entire universe. George Miller created his whole universe with his team to make all of the vehicles real, where like the X-Wings and that are obviously not real. You're flying in space. There's no realism to it. Where this, you can get in there and you can be like, I could live in that world someday. And then Tom Hardy will hopefully save me. Or Charlize Theron, either way. But which brings me to the point of how good Charlize Theron is and how much of a snub it was for her not to get nominated for an Oscar, because it was just such a well done performance. She took the role of main character from Tom Hardy, essentially, because, I mean, as Mad Max, he mainly just does a lot of grunts and doesn't talk a whole lot. But Charlize Theron was so well done as Furiosa in there, with her metal arm and all that, and the way she was just trying to protect the women and all that, and driving in the huge truck. But just a lot of the character designs, like the main guy and his mask and all that, with the hoses coming off and everything like that, and even like all the other, like essentially oil barons, more or less, that like the one with the huge feet that they kill and all that, just the disgusting things that they were, but that's all created in this universe. And it's just so amazingly well done overall. And like I said, it's critically acclaimed, more or less, which is a shocker for a high action film, to have critical acclaim to it, to have critics who back this up, because on Metacritic even, it still has a score of 90 to this day, where Star Wars only has an 81. So even if for critic-wise, Mad Max, that's the words, Mad Max is actually the one that critics are still like, yeah, that's good. Also why it got nominated for Oscars as well, where Star Wars, I think, got nominated for maybe 1 or 2, if that. But didn't win anything, versus 6 Oscar wins for Mad Max, when it cleared house on a lot of stuff for that. And honestly kind of missed out on Best Picture like it could have been, really, but it was just a whole thing in itself for it to even get nominated in the Oscars for Beyond Anything, so.
Nice round. All right, Force Awakens, 3.5 minutes, go.
So I think in the era of the AAA franchise, where there are so many different big movies going on all the time, Star Wars somehow felt so much bigger. I mean, everything we see today, at least that is worthwhile and generates buzz, is going to be sequels, prequels, stuff like the 2 movies we're arguing right now. and I think when I go and say that Star Wars felt bigger, is that because it is a lot bigger. It's the original Mad Maxes I'm a huge fan of, and those were early '80s. They started off in and then trailed on into late '80s, early '90s, mid '90s, whatever it was. Star Wars has been around, for literally 40 years, and has generated this huge culture. Think of like the amount of people that were going to that movie expecting it to be this way or that way. It generated so much box office, billions of dollars worldwide. And think of all that audience that had to go there and wanted to see something. And when you say that it had an 80%, and I know that the fan score is going to be higher, that means overwhelmingly, with all these different takes, with this massive international market that this movie was going to, everybody went to this movie and at least saw enough to say, yeah, I liked it. And I think that's a really good thing that Star Wars is going. And I think it took so many aspects, so many things it had to do to become successful, and it did enough on each front to make everybody happy. I mean, you had to appease the old fans, you had to appease the new fans, you had to appease people that didn't even really know what Star Wars was. And I think that Abrams had a monumental task of not only making a movie that would make people happy, but also making a good movie. And yeah, you could call it not quite a shot-for-shot remake of the first Star Wars, because it was very similar in the general plot. But it added so much. He definitely had a good touch on there. There was a lot of really good cinematography in there. The X-Wings rising, or not the X-Wings, I think it was TIE Fighters, rising above the desert, with the haze in the background. There were a lot of, great frames in that movie that really make it stand out. And then, we were talking about bringing this preconceived world in. They also had to sit down and, with a billion guys in a room, I'm sure, had to sit there and argue and fight over who the new characters were going to be. And I think overwhelmingly, they all turned out pretty well. I mean, I thought that's a lot of the new characters between Daisy Ridley's character as Rey and Oscar Isaac's character Poe were really popular. And Kylo Ren, I think, call him like a whiny hipster all you want, but I thought overall the general scheme, the general identity of that character was cool. I mean, I don't know if you want to call him Darth Maul cool, but certainly he had this distinctness to him. He's not like the other Sith people we've seen. And overall, I just loved this movie. I saw it 3 or 4 times, and I still think about it. And most excitingly, I am so happy with that product that I'm really excited to see everything else that this new movie has introduced. I mean, we've got 3 or 4 Star Wars movies come in the next couple of years, and I'll go see every one of them because I like this movie so much.
Excellent. Nice stuff.
Good.
All right, rebuttals. It's going to come down to this. Here we go. 2 minutes. And begin.
Okay, I did look it up while I was listening to you there. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's a 97 versus a 92 for Mad Max over Star Wars. So Rotten Tomatoes still has Mad Max going for it. And character-wise, Mad Max, it didn't have a huge, gigantic, millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of people fan base already. It came in and just rocked the entire world immediately. Everybody knew Star Wars was going to be big because it's Star Wars. Like, people are like, hey, there's a Star Wars movie coming. Oh, cool, we'll go see that. Everybody's like, Mad Max, what is that? They're going to go see it because it's been, 20 years since they had a good one? So you have a whole new thing that was created, and the way George Miller brought back his creations and created new ones and brought back the dude who played Immortan Joe, who was the guy from the original one. He brought him back to play the major villain in this one, and Immortan Joe is just a so highly recognized character now with that mask and everything. And even the characters of Furiosa, who I would say is a much more powerful female character than what Daisy Ridley is in Star Wars. Like, George Miller went for, this is my female character, she is the most important thing in this film, and she is much more important than what Daisy Ridley was in Star Wars, because Star Wars, they're like, yeah, there's this guy over here and Oscar Isaac's over there. Daisy Ridley's here, but she needs help from a bunch of other people. Mad Max is like, Furiosa is the shit. She is the most dominant thing in this. Mad Max is there too, but he's just going to be kind of quieted the whole time. Then you have that awesome small role from Nicholas Hoult as one of the war boys. And like the spray paint on the teeth that's silver and all that and just goes crazy. but you have his character change in there. Where Star Wars, you have like a similar path, a similar line that you see them all going down, because it's essentially New Hope once again, just with upgraded graphics. Mad Max goes into it and is like, here's a bunch of characters again, but we're going to give you different routes for them and let you see them in a different light.
Good round. All right. Here it is. Last 2 minutes. Begin.
So, my opening argument to describe my film was that there was a huge audience for this movie, and you addressed that in yours by saying that it attributed to some of its money making. 100% agree. The main difference here is Mad Max took a story, although I really like the original movies, it took a story with separate characters, because Mad Max, I would argue, at least in the original, isn't so much about the characters as it is the situation, kind of the survival aspect of it. Star Wars had a much harder task because there is no Mel Gibson in your Mad Max movie. They didn't have to try to shoehorn him in there. Star Wars had to bring those people back. We knew they were coming, so you got to go, how do we put all these old characters back into a new movie and have it still feel fresh, you know? And I will admit that Princess Leia felt a little shoehorned, but I thought they did an excellent job of incorporating the old with the new. Mad Max, although it is considered a sequel, didn't have to do that. All it had to do was go, look, explosions, watch it. You had to have so many things balancing in Star Wars to make it good, and you had to make people want to watch, you know, like a 90,000-year-old Harrison Ford and go, oh yeah, that's believable, he can do some of that stuff. And mostly he just stole Chewie's gun the whole time, but it was still cool. And I thought that the balancing act that was there was incredible, because you got to, you know, get that nostalgia of watching the old characters, and I thought that was really what took that movie up to the next level. It would have been good if they wouldn't have brought those characters in, but I think that they managed to balance the new and the old and make a really good movie still, is what makes that movie excellent. Your movie just had to go, this is the world, strip away the characters, you know, that's fresh. You take this old world where you got a bunch of rotten bananas in it, try to make it cool again. And they did it. And, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to go see every Star Wars until I die, just because I know that we hopefully never end up back where the prequels were, and this movie did not feel like the prequel. It felt very much like the original Star Wars. That's what I got to say about it.
Nice. Another good round.
Hate to be you, Scott.
I know this is too tough for me. All right, let's see. Hit it with us. Hit it.
Of people.
All right, here I go. Starting off with Mad Max Fury Road, 8.1 on IMDb, 90 Metascore, 97% on Rotten Tomato. But somebody did mention fan scores. I think it was you, Blake. So I looked up those. Mad Max has an 86% fan score on Rotten Tomato. Won six Oscars, like Taylor said. Number 183 on Top 250. First Mad Max came out in 1977, which is only 2 years after the original Star Wars film. And then the last Mad Max film, Beyond Thunderdome, came out in 1985, which is 30 years.
Nobody counts that.
It still counts as a Mad Max film. That's 30 years between the films coming out. Jumping over to Star Wars, 8.2 on IMDb, 81 Metascore, 92% on Rotten Tomato, and the fan score is 89%, so it does got you there. Nominated for 5 Oscars, number 140 on Top 250. So.
Wow.
Brad wins.
Look, I'll start with Force Awakens. It's, I think what Blake had said about the pressure of having the name of Star Wars, and having to serve new fans, old fans, and fans that grew up maybe with the prequels, having to service all of those and having that type of number, not only at the box office, which box office doesn't mean ratings, it just means people are interested in what you're going for. So I looked at that as a lot of pressure for Force Awakens that ended up rising above the pressure and giving out a very serviceable film that I don't know if it netted many Oscars. I know they were nominated for some.
Nothing yet,
But I know then here you have Mad Max, which is George Miller coming back, almost in the same vein as Force Awakens, them coming back to it. But again, like Blake mentioned, that it's not that they had to stick these old characters back in there. You didn't have a Mel Gibson in there.
They talked about it.
But Taylor
Nobody
did
wanted
say
that
that they,
racism in
you know, they do have the character who played, remind me the white-haired guy's name?
Immortal Joe.
Yeah, him coming back, and that it was sort of a stunning thing that this action movie with these explosions and everything was nominated for Best Picture, and also just so highly regarded, 6 Oscar wins, sort of cleaning up. So I'm stuck with, do I go with the film that had high expectations and came through on top? Or do I go with the film that had less pressure and ended up shocking everybody? Well, I'm going to go by the facts, and I got to go Mad Max.
Oh, I thought I had a solid argument.
You had a great argument, and honestly, after the first part, I'm sitting here thinking this better be a great rebuttal, but I don't know. His rebuttal really got you on your heels, and I don't know if you were able to really attack him instead of you had to guard your own film. But I mean, both very worthy opponents. So the final score goes 2-1 in Taylor Ruffalo Wheeler's way, but Blake Zorno did a pretty fantastic job. I think Trace would agree.
I agree.
So we're over 40 subscribers now. You have to come and check out what we're doing here. We have great fighters all the time. We have awesome top 10 lists going. We have other stuff mixed in here or there. So come check out the page, like it, subscribe, comment. We always love hearing from you. Check out everything that we have going.
Check out me win all the time.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Again.
You're 2-1 in record, right?
That didn't happen. We'll have a rematch. 'Cause you
Okay.
cheated.
Oh,
Fair.
we got a call out of the rematch. You burned Damon after going for a 3-0, which we have not had a 3-0 yet.
Still to this day.
So, but check out our other episodes, and remember, may the force be with you.